The disappearance of Paula Jean Weldon. On December 1st, 1946, Paula Jean Weldon, an 18-year-old sophomore at Bennington College, informed her roommate, Elizabeth Parker, that she intended to embark on an extensive walk. However, she never returned to their shared living quarters. It was later discovered that several eyewitnesses had spotted her along Vermont's Long Trail, a 270-mile hiking route that traverses the picturesque landscapes of Vermont and extends all the way to the Canadian border. Concerned about her safety, a search party was promptly organized, but unfortunately, no significant clues could be gleaned from the trail itself. This mysterious disappearance sparked widespread speculation and prompted fervent efforts to uncover the truth behind Paula Jean Weldon's fate. Shortly after, an article published by the Bennington Banner revealed the emergence of tantalizing and undoubtedly peculiar leads in the investigation. Among these leads, one stood out. A Massachusetts waitress reported serving a visibly anxious young woman who bore a striking resemblance to Paula. This lead sent shockwaves through Paula's father, who disappeared for a staggering 36 hours, purportedly in relentless pursuit of this crucial information. However, the authorities found his behavior peculiar, ultimately resulting in him becoming a prime suspect in Paula's baffling disappearance. Whispers started circulating, shattering the illusion of Paula's perfect family life portrayed initially to the police. It came to light that Paula had not returned home during the week leading up to Thanksgiving, raising suspicions and fueling speculation about a potential disagreement with her father. While vehemently asserting his innocence, Paula's father put forth a theory that his daughter's emotional turmoil may be rooted in an unrequited affection for a boy at school, suggesting that this boy possibly warranted consideration as a suspect. This comprehensive retelling of events delves into the intricate details surrounding Paula's disappearance, shedding light on the chain of events and expanding upon the evolving narrative. During the 10-year period following Paula's disappearance, a resident of Bennington local community boasted on 2 separate occasions to his acquaintances that he possessed knowledge about the exact location where Paula's remains were concealed. Despite his claims, he failed to provide the police with any substantial leads. Regrettably, due to the absence of concrete evidence, the lack of a body, and the scarcity of forensic clues, the case gradually turned into a cold investigation, leaving the fate of Paula Jean Weldon forever shrouded in mystery. The mystery of Cynthia Anderson. Cynthia Anderson, a young woman of 20, grew up in a highly religious family that adhered to a meticulously structured lifestyle governed by their church. This religious household was known for its strict routine, which encompassed a plethora of activities, such as prayer gatherings, swimming competitions, camping expeditions, festive celebrations, and weekly Sunday worship. These events were meticulously organized by the church that Cynthia and her family faithfully attended. In describing his daughter, Michael Anderson, Cynthia's father, portrayed her as a quiet and compliant individual who preferred to keep a low profile, but was still able to cultivate numerous friendships within her social circle. Cynthia, a young and appealing woman, managed to captivate others with her charm, despite being raised in a household with strict rules. Despite adhering to her parents' regulations, she found companionship in a boyfriend who shared her religious beliefs within the same church community. As the summer unfolded, Cynthia's father expressed concern about her increasingly investing time in her appearance, seemingly embracing a debutante-like persona. Although she worked diligently as a legal secretary in Toledo, Ohio, Cynthia had made the decision to leave her job behind to pursue her education at the Bible College, the very same institution attended by her boyfriend. The anticipation of her final day at work grew, as her dedication to preparing for this new chapter in her life left her yearning for a fresh start. Last year, in a peculiar twist of events, a striking display caught Cynthia's attention from her desk. Positioned on a wall opposite her window, which was easily visible from the outside, was an intriguing graffiti that read, "I love you, Cindy," in bold, imposing letters, accompanied by a modest GW in the corner. Of notable importance was the fact that Cynthia was the solitary Cindy in the entire strip mall vicinity where this graffiti emerged. Its placement seemed intentionally orchestrated, designed to exclusively capture Cynthia's gaze. Nevertheless, a perplexing mystery remained as Cynthia found herself utterly clueless about the identity of the enigmatic GW. For 6 long months, this heartfelt inscription lingered on the wall, an enigmatic and thought-provoking tribute. Eventually, time took its toll, and the message was begrudgingly concealed. However, fate had other plans in store for Cynthia. As if scripted in a morose twist of fate, the message resurfaced, now boasting even larger and bolder letters. An ominous foreboding permeated the air, as if to suggest that the haunting graffiti was the mere tip of the iceberg for Cynthia's mounting troubles. In the summer of 1981, Cynthia found herself subjected to a distressing situation whereby she received a multitude of menacing phone calls from unidentified individuals. The explicit content of these messages instilled great fear within her, leading to a series of recurring nightmares where she envisioned herself being violently assaulted by an unknown man. The intensity of her anxiety grew to such an extent that her workplace took proactive measures to ensure her safety, including the installation of an emergency buzzer at her desk and the enforcement of strict office security protocols, such as keeping her doors locked at all times. Regrettably, despite these precautions, the ongoing harassment and intimidation persisted, leaving Cynthia in a constant state of vulnerability. On the morning of August 4, 1981, Cynthia deviated from her usual routine by skipping breakfast and departing from her parents' house around 8:30 in the morning with the intention of heading to work. Arriving at the office, she was spotted as late as 9:45 in the morning, which suggests that she had indeed made it to her workplace. However, by the time her employer, James Rabbit, arrived at the office around lunchtime, an unsettling scene unfolded before his eyes. Despite the lights being on and the radio playing, there was no trace of Cynthia. The atmosphere was tinged with the pungent scent of nail polish remover, permeating the air. No note had been left behind, and incessant ringing from the phones echoed through the stillness. There were no apparent signs of a struggle, adding to the mystery of Cynthia's sudden disappearance. Intriguingly, the office door remained locked from the inside, which only deepened the perplexity surrounding her absence. Interestingly, although her car was parked in its usual spot in the parking lot, her purse and keys were nowhere to be found. This peculiar circumstance intensified the intrigue surrounding Cynthia's vanishing act. Adding an eerie twist to the perplexing situation, a romance novel that Cynthia had been engrossed in lay open on her desk, revealing a page where the protagonist meets a harrowing fate. This comprehensive and in-depth expansion of the original text sheds further light on the perplexing circumstances of Cynthia. Despite exhaustive efforts, Cynthia Anderson has eluded discovery, leaving her disappearance as an unresolved mystery. Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance. Since his vanishing on July 30, 1975, the enigma encompassing the events surrounding Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance has attained an almost legendary status, surpassing all other aspects of his life, a remarkable accomplishment in itself. Even now, the demise of Jimmy Hoffa continues to cast a shadow over the entirety of his illustrious existence. The perplexity of what transpired on that fateful day has captured the collective imagination, fostering a sense of intrigue and fascination that transcends time. Jimmy Hoffa, the former leader of the influential and morally compromised Teamsters Union, had gained widespread recognition even before his mysterious disappearance. The fact that he seemingly vanished without a trace was utterly unbelievable, highlighting the ease with which his existence was seemingly wiped from history. This astonishing situation has captivated the public's interest for decades, leaving them perplexed and demanding answers. Jimmy Hoffa, determined not to be overshadowed by anyone in terms of significance, even in his mysterious disappearance, it seems fitting that he would continue to be remembered as one of America's most renowned individuals who went missing. He ultimately became the symbol of those who crossed paths with organized crime during the 1970s, at least in the eyes of the public. Even after several decades have passed, we still find ourselves unable to resist the urge to speculate about the circumstances surrounding Jimmy Hoffa's demise and the truth behind his vanishing all those years ago. Through this enduring fascination, Hoffa's legacy continues to captivate our collective imagination. James Riddle Hoffa, who was born on February 14, 1913, was brought up in Detroit and considered it his lifelong home. During his teenage years, while working at a Kroger grocery store warehouse, Hoffa's exposure to low wages, oppressive supervisors, and the absence of job stability fueled a deep resentment among the employees. This was the catalyst for his foray into union organizing at a young age. In his quest to address these issues, Hoffa embarked on a path that would shape his future and cement his role as a prominent figure in the labor movement. Hoffa's early experiences laid the groundwork for his unwavering determination to fight for fair wages and improved working conditions. James R. Hoffa, a person with an approachable and courageous demeanor, showcased his exceptional leadership potential at an early stage of his career during a tumultuous wildcat strike involving warehouse workers. This strike not only brought about improved pay and working conditions for the workers, but also served as a defining moment for Hoffa. Recognizing his abilities, the Teamsters local swiftly recruited him as an organizer in 1932. Henceforth, Hoffa's life became intricately intertwined with the Teamsters, lasting for more than 5 decades. This enduring association became a substantial and defining aspect of Hoffa's personal and professional journey, outlining his unwavering dedication to the labor movement. Throughout his extensive tenure in the Teamsters, James R. Hoffa emerged as an iconic figure, serving as the organization's most prominent public representative. With a fervent and combative approach, Hoffa passionately advocated for the rights of American trade unions. His captivating televised clashes with Senator Robert Kennedy during a Senate committee inquiry into corruption within the nation's labor unions propelled Hoffa into the spotlight and etched his name into the consciousness of everyday Americans. In doing so, he garnered the unwavering support and admiration of millions of hard-working individuals who viewed him as an unwavering champion, dedicated to advancing their collective interests and ideals. Throughout his life, there were extensive records and widespread coverage of Jimmy Hoffa's connections to criminal figures. These associations played a significant role in his ability to enhance and fortify the Teamsters Union, ultimately transforming it into one of the nation's most influential labor unions, if not the outright most dominant. The depth and breadth of Hoffa's relationship with organized crime enabled him to amass considerable power and influence within the Teamsters, shaping the course of union affairs and exerting a formidable presence in the labor landscape of the United States. The pact that Hoffa made with the mob eventually proved to have dire consequences for him. As the 1970s unfolded, a discord arose between the interests of the Teamsters members and those aligned with the mafia, leading Hoffa and the mob to find themselves in conflict with each other. This conflict stemmed from the fact that their goals and purposes had diverged over time. The repercussions of this clash were far-reaching and had a profound impact on the trajectory of Hoffa's life and the dynamics between the Teamsters and the mafia. Given the stubborn stance of both sides, neither showing any willingness to compromise, the prospect of widespread violence erupting across the nation among rival mob factions became a genuine and imminent concern. The escalating tensions and unresolved conflict between these groups created a precarious situation where a violent confrontation seemed almost inevitable. It never actually reached that point, as Jimmy Hoffa mysteriously vanished on July 30th, 1975, leaving no trace or communication thereafter. This puzzling disappearance has remained an enduring enigma, captivating the public's curiosity for decades. The information available suggests that on July 30th, 1975, the last known sighting of Jimmy Hoffa took place in the parking lot of the Machu's Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township, Michigan. It is noteworthy that Hoffa had agreed to meet with a select group of influential individuals associated with organized crime, specifically the mafia families who were at the center of the ongoing disagreement between himself and the Teamsters locals across the nation. These families had been gradually gaining control over numerous Teamsters locals, creating a significant conflict of interest. The ostensible purpose of the meeting appeared to be a resolution of the leadership and control dispute within the Teamsters Union. However, upon closer examination, it becomes evident that the meeting was orchestrated as a clever trap, aimed at perpetrating the heinous crime of assassinating the influential labor leader. Despite the prevailing belief that Jimmy Hoffa met his demise at the hands of a mob assassin, his remains have eluded discovery thus far. In addition, law enforcement could not gather sufficient evidence to bring charges against the prominent individuals connected to organized crime who were likely complicit in the assassination. Consequently, This case has remained an unsolved investigation over the years, even though Jimmy Hoffa was officially declared deceased in 1982. The mystery surrounding his disappearance continues to intrigue the public, leading to countless theories and speculations about his ultimate fate. The truth of the matter remains elusive when it comes to the fate of the notorious Labour leader, and despite numerous attempts at forensic investigation, a definitive explanation of what truly befell him has yet to surface. Nevertheless, speculations surrounding the demise of Jimmy Hoffa are numerous, some of which are widely recognized and filled with macabre details that never fail to captivate the public's enduring fascination. One of the most widely recognized and long-standing theories surrounding the mysterious disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa suggests that he was subjected to a brutal fate. According to this theory, he was allegedly fired at, and his remains were then frozen. To conceal the evidence, it is believed that his body was buried within the cement foundation of Giants Stadium. The account of Jimmy Hoffa's demise initially became widely known in 1989, when Donald Francos granted an interview. In this interview, Francos alleged that Hoffa met his untimely end at the hands of Jimmy Coonan, a prominent figure in the Irish Mafia of New York. According to Francos, Coonan orchestrated Hoffa's murder and concealed his remains at the home field utilized by the New York Giants and New York Jets football teams. This revelation shed new light on the mysterious circumstances surrounding Hoffa's disappearance and offered a compelling twist to the narrative. As per Francos's account, it is stated that following Coonan's action of taking out Hoffa with a suppressed .22 caliber handgun inside a residence in Mount Clemens, Michigan, he, along with John Sullivan, a hitman associated with the New York Mafia, proceeded to take apart Hoffa using a combination of a power saw and meat cleaver. Afterward, the bags containing Jimmy Hoffa's remains were transported to the expansive construction site of Giant Stadium, which eventually opened its doors the following year. The bags were intentionally blended into the concrete foundation beneath what would later become Section 107. This specific section happened to be situated in close proximity to the end zone of the stadium's football field. In fact, a detailed map of the stadium was even created, highlighting the precise location where Hoffa's body was clandestinely interred. This intriguing revelation was prominently featured in a news article, accompanied by the striking headline, "Hoffa Goes Deep." According to Francos, Coonan, and an accomplice, they provided him with details of how the murder of Jimmy Hoffa was executed after it had already occurred. Francos asserted that he disclosed this information to the Federal Bureau of Investigation in 1986. However, the FBI didn't find substantial evidence to substantiate Francos's claim, despite taking the allegations seriously in 1989. It is worth noting that Francos, who was under the protection of the Federal Witness Program in preparation for testifying against notorious New York crime boss John Gotti, faced challenges in supporting his statement. Furthermore, investigators associated with the Jimmy Hoffa case have contradicted Francos's assertion that he informed the FBI about these details back in 1986. The theory surrounding Jimmy Hoffa's passing lacked tangible evidence, leading to its dismissal as another anecdotal account in the extensive collection of Hoffa-related stories. As an indication of the diminishing significance given to this theory, when Giant Stadium was demolished in 2010, the FBI chose not to participate in any search efforts at the site. This lack of action can be attributed to the absence of substantial proof or leads that would warrant further investigation. The mystery of the Gardner Museum heist. On the fateful day of March 18, 1990, the distinguished Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, situated in the lively city of Boston, tragically became the target of an audacious and unparalleled art heist, forever etching its name in the annals of history. This nefarious act of criminality resulted in the disappearance of a relatively small number of prized artworks, a mere 13 in total. During the fateful night of the heist, it was observed that there were 2 guards assigned to the premises, both of whom had limited experience in their roles. One of these guards, who goes by the name Richard E. Abath, had an interesting background that involved dropping out of music school and being a member of a rock band. He openly admitted that on numerous occasions, after performing with his band, he would arrive at work under the influence. However, he vehemently insisted that on the night of the robbery, he was completely sober and free from any impairments. In the early hours of the morning, Precisely at 12:54, an unexpected occurrence disrupted the tranquility of the museum as a fire alarm abruptly rang out, originating from the third floor. Acting promptly, Abath, the vigilant security personnel, promptly went to investigate the situation, only to discover that there was no sign of any fire hazard or smoke. The nature of this incident, and its potential connections to the nefarious intentions of the thieves, remained shrouded in uncertainty. Approximately half an hour later, precisely at 1:24 in the morning, a peculiar incident unfolded that further intensified the intrigue surrounding the museum. Two individuals, skillfully disguising themselves as Boston police officers, appeared at the security desk where Abath was diligently stationed, buzzing for attention. Claiming to be responding to a disturbance call, they forcefully demanded entry into the premises. The security guard at the museum, against museum protocol, allowed the two men to enter through the employee entrance. As they approached Abath, who was stationed behind the desk, one of them recognized him and falsely claimed that there was a warrant out for his arrest. Deceived by this information, Abath was coerced to step away from his control desk, which held the vital silent alarm button. Subsequently, he was instructed to face the wall and subsequently handcuffed. Another guard appeared and was similarly apprehended. When the perplexed second guard questioned the reason for his arrest, one of the men clarified that this was not an arrest, but a planned robbery. They explicitly warned both guards against causing any trouble, assuring that their cooperation would guarantee their safety. Approximately 81 minutes elapsed before the culprits successfully absconded with a collection of 13 invaluable masterpieces. Not stopping there, they cunningly acquired a petite yet significant self-portrait etching by Rembrandt, which had been discreetly affixed to the side of a chest. Today, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum bears witness to empty frames, purposefully left as a poignant reminder of the stolen artistic treasures. As of now, the elusive thieves have managed to evade capture, and the whereabouts of these exceptional masterpieces remain shrouded in mystery. Eager to recover their invaluable possessions, the museum has offered an astounding $10 million reward to anyone who can provide credible information leading to their retrieval. Why were medieval knights depicted fighting snails? The hand-drawn illustrations discovered in the borders of ancient texts can be just as captivating as the texts themselves. A notable instance of this is the bizarre and recurrent depiction of knights engaging in battles against snails. During the period spanning from the late 13th century to the 15th century, depictions of knights engaging in combat with snails can be found in various unexpected contexts throughout medieval literature. These images provide intriguing glimpses into the perceptions and beliefs of medieval society regarding the world they inhabited. During the late 13th century, around 1290, depictions of knights battling snails began to appear in illuminated manuscripts from North France. Subsequently, these illustrations also surfaced in Flemish and English manuscripts, albeit with slightly less frequency. Surprisingly, these drawings of snails often seem to have no connection to the nearby illustrations or written content. In various French folktale manuscripts, doodles frequently portrayed a knight armed and facing off against a snail, whose horns were elongated and resembled arrows. The illustrations depicted the knights wielding a range of weapons, such as sticks, maces, flails, axes, swords, and even forks. Snail attackers are predominantly male warriors, but there is a solitary recorded case of a female challenging a snail armed with a spear and shield. As these sketches depicting snail battles gained popularity in manuscripts, they became an established feature of medieval imagery. Subsequently, they extended their influence to various aspects of medieval society. The decorative carvings found on Lyon Cathedral's main entrance in France, dating back to around 1310, provide an intriguing glimpse into medieval art. Among these carvings, there is a depiction of a knight facing off against a snail, as well as another scene featuring a man brandishing an axe at a snail-like creature with a human head. These intricate panels serve as a testament to the artistic intricacy and creativity prevalent during that time period. Throughout their journeys across different countries, the motif of knights fighting against snails remained relatively consistent, indicating the possibility of a deeper underlying significance. During the medieval era, the reasons behind the widespread popularity of depictions featuring battles between snails and knights remain uncertain. However, One hypothesis suggests that these illustrations serve to inject humor into otherwise monotonous and serious texts. Numerous doodles depict knights relinquishing their swords or humbly kneeling before their small-shelled adversaries, thereby enhancing the satirical undertones. Additionally, there are several illustrations featuring women imploring knights to refrain from engaging the formidable creatures. Snails were acknowledged during the medieval era for their exceptional strength, as they possessed the ability to transport their dwellings on their backs. Consequently, encountering a snail could serve as a trial to assess an individual's physical resilience and psychological toughness. The snail, which was once seen as a symbol of false bravery, now faces the threat of being pursued and eliminated as a way to demonstrate power and valor. During the 1300s, just like other subjects depicted in illuminated manuscripts, the representation of the snail and knight gradually declined and became less popular over time. Interestingly, there was a temporary resurgence of interest in the snail and knight duo towards the late 15th century in medieval manuscripts.
A discovered 1.8 billion-year-old nuclear reactor. Back in 1972, when a large amount of uranium ore was mined from the Oklo mine located out in the country of Gabon, a small nation found in Central Africa, scientists began to test the uranium deposits to catalogue the amount of recovered uranium-235 that was gathered from the site and could be used for ongoing efforts of nuclear fission and nuclear reactors. Unfortunately, they quickly realised that a substantial amount of uranium-235 was missing from the ore deposits, as uranium-235 naturally forms a solid concentration of 0.072%, but found a significant amount lacking from the mined minerals. As they investigated the situation, believing that perhaps more than 200 kilograms had been stolen, they quickly realised that located near the mined location was the perfect conditions to form a believed to be naturally forming nuclear reactor that is dated to be roughly 1.8 billion years old. Scientists claim that the uranium ore was used up when a naturally formed cavern using groundwater to help stabilise the nuclear reaction was discovered underground. Theorists, however, have an alternative explanation. Given the fact that the specifications required to form a naturally made nuclear reactor require specific storage of the uranium-235, the continued influx of water and a number of steps to prevent the compounds from becoming superheated, it is believed that the location is not naturally formed and rather the use of a primitive nuclear reactor by time-travelling humans needed to create a substantial amount of energy. Today, the claim is widely debated as one of the key pieces of evidence of time-travelling humans and their influence on the past.
Andrew Basiago claims the US sent him on time travels. Our next mysterious individual is none other than an attorney who claims he was part of a time travel program as a child. Andrew Basiago has been publicly claiming that he participated in Project Pegasus from the ages of 7 to 12. The secret project was said to be run by the government and it worked on teleportation and time travel. Basiago explains that they were training children among adults to test the mental and physical effects of time travel on both children and adults. He claims that children were at an advantage to adults because they could adapt to the moving between the past, present and future much more easily than adults could. Ever since publicly announcing his so-called experience with time travel, there have been many skeptics. Many physicists, such as Hong Kong's Sheng Wang Du, had stated that time travel is impossible at this time because nothing can move faster than the speed of light. With that being said, there have been some claims that support Basiago's story, such as that of Alfred Webre, who is a lawyer that specializes in exopolitics. Exopolitics consists of the political implications of the extraterrestrial presence on Earth. He strongly believes that time travel has been around for over 40 years, but the Defense Department is hoarding the technology instead of putting it to good use. Webre further explains that this mode of transportation is inexpensive and environmentally friendly, which leaves us questioning why it would not be used if the technology was available. He claims that it was used years ago to send troops to battle, but no one has yet to prove that theory. Returning to the life of Basiago, he apparently experienced 8 different time travel technologies during the program. The main device he used was a teleporter that was based on the drawings found by Nikola Tesla after he passed away in 1943. He describes the machine as two grey elliptical booms about 8 feet tall that were separated by 10 feet. In between, there was a shimmering curtain of radiant energy. Radiant energy is a form of energy that Tesla discovered and used to bend the properties of time and space. By jumping through the field of radiant energy, participants would enter a tunnel, and when they felt the tunnel close, they would be at their destination. He said it felt as if they were moving very quickly, or not at all. With so much to say about time travel, Basiago must have had some proof to go along with it. However, he claims that he can be seen in a photograph of Abraham Lincoln in 1863 and speaks to his experience being there. When asked about returning back to present day, he says that if he were a hologram for 15 minutes or less, the hologram would collapse, and he'd find himself back in the present about a minute later. Does this mean that he truly time-travelled, or was it all a figment of his imagination? With apparently about 100 people working on this secret project, no one else has yet to step forward and confirm what Basiago is saying to be true. It appears as if we may never know the truth, but maybe one day that will change. Sewil, possible uncontacted tribe. Sewil are considered to be a race of wild humanoids, a species that closely resembles humankind but with notable significant differences. Thought to be similar to known humanoid species in Indonesia, Sewil lives in the jungles of Java, also in Indonesia, mostly surrounding Meru Batiri National Park. Sewil is derived from the Japanese word meaning little, so it should come as no surprise that the distinctive differences between the human race and Sewil tribe is size. A physical account of the Sewil tribe describes them as reaching less than a meter in height, travelling unclothed and in groups, with a fair amount of body hair and hair that reaches to their shoulders. These humanoids often frequent areas surrounding water in order to access seafood such as fish, crab and shrimp, which we believe composes the main basis of their diet. Fishing often takes place using handcrafted tools such as spears, as well as small bags in order to carry their food and supplies. While us humans appear keen to interact and increase our sightings, the Sewil tribe have been known, so far, to run from humans or jump in order to flee from us. These humanoids have a reputation for their agility, being able to jump to both impressive heights and lengths when you consider their relative height. What makes these humanoids unique is how advanced they appear to be. The tribe seems to be remarkably close to human life, like ourselves. Sewil live and function as part of a community, and their relatively advanced tools indicate a higher intelligence than other known humanoid tribes. For example, the Orang Pendek tribe is referred to as being similar to small gorillas, and the Ibu Gogo having a close resemblance to orangutans. Heri Budi Ermawan, a municipal council member, explored the jungles of Java to aim to find the Sewil. He saw them, but, in keeping with expectations, the men ran. Strangely, when Ermawan took some covert photos from a distance, the photos were developed to reveal only background, with the Sewil tribe members being absent from the frame. Anang Retano ventured with the mysterious tracks team in order to find the Sewil people in 2011, and they saw tracks they had left. Retano discovered some tracks along the estuary of the Nangalang River, with the length from toe to ankle reaching just 9.2 centimeters and only 2 centimeters in width. Video footage was retrieved in which 3 men can be seen to run into the jungle. The video suggested the Sewil tribe make a phonetic sound likened to a monkey. For now, we remain unable to contact this tribe, though hopefully this can change in the near future. Plenty of animals, humanoids and monsters live on the brink of discovery, and while for now we watch from a distance, reporting encounters and taking photos, perhaps one day we can truly understand the other life that lives amongst us on Earth. The Black-Eyed Children of Cannock Chase. The Black-Eyed Children are contemporary legends, first referenced in American folklore. If you've never heard of them, you would probably be wondering what and who they are. However, this eerie entity seems to be anything but human. Some think that black-eyed children are creatures of the supernatural, and it's reported that they are often found hitchhiking or in strange places alone. In 2014, residents of a small area of green countryside and quaint villages in Staffordshire, England, allegedly had an experience with these strange beings. Lee Brickley, a paranormal investigator from the local area, received a letter from a resident of the area who believed she'd seen a black-eyed girl in Cannock Chase. The investigator took one look at the description and immediately realised that this specific sighting had occurred before in the area. However, this was 30 years earlier. Lee released a description which his own aunt provided of the girl she'd seen in the 1980s, and locals immediately drew comparisons between the two figures. He described his aunt's encounter. My aunt was only 18 years old at the time. In the summer of 1982, herself and a friend would frequently meet on Cannock Chase in the evenings. An evening, just before the darkness approached, we heard a small child hysterically yelling. We couldn't work out whether she was in danger or not. Nevertheless, rushing to find the yells, we stumbled upon a footpath and caught sight of a girl, about 6 years old, sprinting in the opposite direction. When they caught up, the girl turned around and stared into my aunt's eyes, then proceeded to run off into the pitch-dark woodland. She described her eyes as being entirely black, with no trace of white. A police search was conducted but was unsuccessful. At the time, no one had any reason to believe anything paranormal was going on. The girl certainly appeared to be of flesh and blood. The latest description of the black-eyed girl of Cannock Chase was provided by a woman under the name of Mrs. Kelly. My daughter and I were walking through the Birches Valley, an area well known for its impressive sightings. However, we stopped in our tracks when we heard the screams of a young girl. Unsure if the noise was a boy or a girl, they undoubtedly gave the impression they were in a state of turmoil. However, they sounded close, therefore we immediately started to run towards the noise. Unsure of the whereabouts of the child, we stopped to catch our breath and tried to relocate where the noise was. That's when I turned around and saw a girl stood behind me, no older than 10 years old. She had her hands over her eyes, like she was scared or hiding something. I asked if she had been the one shouting. She then put her arms by her sides and opened her eyes. That's when I saw they were completely black. It was like looking into the state of nothingness. I jumped back and grabbed my daughter. I blinked and the child was gone. It was strange and bizarre. Lee Brickley, the investigator, believes that black-eyed children, like those found in Cannock Chase, are actually demonic beings and exist for evil purposes. He also recognizes that, of many of the sightings of black-eyed children, it seems as if the creatures are leading others towards some sort of danger. One thing has been recognized. The Cannock Chase sightings are the only sightings that occur during the daytime. Whether these sightings are false or actually credible, we do not know. However, you definitely wouldn't want to stumble across a black-eyed child at any time of day. The disappearance of George Smith. George Allen Smith was on board the Royal Caribbean International cruise ship Brilliance of the Seas with his wife Jennifer, both celebrating their honeymoon, having married in Connecticut just 10 days previously. They were a young couple in their 20s and adamant their marriage would get off to a luxurious start, and one where they could continue to party and celebrate their marriage vows. The newlyweds boarded at Barcelona on Wednesday the 29th of June 2005, and the cruise was due to stop in Greece, France, Turkey and Italy, amongst other stunning locations along the way. By all accounts, George and Jennifer appeared to be having a wonderful time in those first few days of their honeymoon. After dinner on the evening of July the 4th, the couple continued their night with drinks at the ship's disco. George noticed his wife flirting with a man on the dance floor and attempted to intervene. The couple were last seen together when a fiery argument broke out between them, culminating in Jennifer kicking her new husband in the groin and storming out of the disco. The next day, a 16-year-old girl stepped onto her balcony looking to take photos of the spectacular sunrise. Instead, she was greeted with something far more sinister on the overhang of the lifeboats, a huge blood stain on the lifeboat canopy. Security quickly determined that the only people unaccounted for were the Smiths, and moved to find out where they were. Jennifer was found having a massage. She had no memory of what had happened after the casino and awoke in their cabin with no sign of George. She assumed he had gone to sleep in another room, something he had done before. Further searches of the ship revealed no clues as to George's whereabouts. However, bloodstains were found in his cabin as well as on the side of the ship. Foul play was suspected, and the FBI were brought on board to start their own investigations. The matter was referred to the Mafia Division of the FBI with an initial theory that this was a robbery gone bad, with the unfortunate newlywed subsequently thrown from his room over the side of the ship and into the watery depths below. Indeed, Smith's family, citing accounts of other men with him in his cabin and the sounds of arguing before a thud, was heard between 4 and 5 a.m. When detectives believed Jennifer had returned to their room, said they believe he was murdered. The FBI investigated for 10 years before telling the family they couldn't prove his death was a homicide and not an accident, a decision that outraged and disgusted Smith's relatives. His body was never found. Cindy Song. Hyung-Yong Cindy Song was a senior college student at Pennsylvania State University when she went missing. On Halloween of 2001, she attended a costume party with 2 of her friends dressed as a bunny. The 3 stayed at the party until 2 a.m., stopping at a friend's house to play video games before going home. At 4 a.m., Cindy's friends dropped her off at her apartment. She was never seen again after that. Upon conducting a search of her apartment, it was confirmed that there was no sign of forced entry or struggle. Her school backpack and mobile phone were all found in the apartment. Her purse, containing credit cards and her driver's license, however, was missing. Police believed Song was still wearing her costume when she left the apartment because it, too, was not found. A phone analysis was conducted, revealing no inbound or outbound calls, messages or emails, adding to the confusion and lack of evidence leading to any suspects. Tickets to a concert and a printed receipt for a computer were both found in her apartment, providing evidence that she was making future plans that did not involve running away or disappearing. According to her friends and family, there was no evidence that Song was depressed, unhappy, or intending to run away. She was always considered upbeat, friendly, and outgoing, including on the night that she vanished. The surrounding wooded areas were also searched but revealed nothing linked to the case. It is thought that while on her way to a 24-hour supermarket, Song was abducted either on the way or at the location. Others believe that she may have left her apartment with someone close to her that she trusted, and her life was taken. Adding to the mystery and confusion, a woman of a similar description was later seen being forced into a car by a man in Philadelphia, 200 miles away from her apartment. It was reported that she was screaming and resisting, crying for help, but finding none. The man remains a possible suspect, although police do not know who he is. The man has still not been found. A few more suspects were discovered about 2 years later in 2003, including Hugo Selensky. A co-defendant in his case told police that he and an accomplice, Michael Kukowski, had abducted and taken the life of a woman from Pennsylvania State College that matched Song's description, although nothing was ever confirmed. The report led authorities to 5 bodies, which were all DNA tested for identification. None of them, however, were found to be Song. Even recently, in 2014, 7 more bodies were discovered on Selensky's property. Again, authorities hoped that perhaps Song's body would be found and the case would be solved. However, her body was not one of those, and has still never been found. This case remains unsolved, as no new evidence has surfaced regarding what may have happened to Song after that Halloween night. The Willis Tower Sighting. Back in Chicago, our final humanoid sighting story comes from the Willis Tower, a breathtaking skyscraper standing at 527 meters tall. In 2017, a man was innocently going about his day in the city until he looked up at the Willis Tower. As the man cast his gaze to the very top of the tower, he spotted something utterly bizarre and utterly fascinating, as well as a bit disconcerting. A creature which looked about 6 feet tall, and attached to its human-like body, it had a huge pair of wings that propelled it into the sky. It swooped low before soaring back off into the distance, leaving the witness understandably shaken. Unsure of what to do, the man contacted a local paranormal sighting researcher named Lon Strickler. He explained to Strickler that the creature reminded him of a mantis and was dark green in colour. The being apparently mutated in flight, changing in its form and appearance. Strickler himself was well aware of humanoid sightings in the area and is one of the most prominent researchers in this field, but even he admitted it was unusual to see a humanoid of this type. They apparently tend to be black or grey and more bat-like in shape. This was the 22nd sighting in Chicago in 2017 alone, and it's been noted that humanoids tend to appear at dusk or during the night, especially in the Lake Michigan area. But despite the flurry of activity in 2017, Chicago's flying humanoid sightings seem to have gone a little quiet. Whatever paranormal goings-on are occurring near Lake Michigan, they sure make terrifying stories. 3 rather strange but somewhat intriguing and mysterious flying creature stories. These so-called humanoids might seem ridiculous for the majority of us, but for a handful of people out there, they're simply all too real. Yet, all of those who have witnessed these somewhat incredible creatures will agree on one thing. They definitely aren't the product of somebody's imagination. And given the number of sightings in one area over the course of a year, it's understandable why interest in humanoids grew. Adam's Bridge. Structures made by early humans are understandably uncommon. Years of wear and tear, as well as intentional damage over the centuries, means that many of our ancestors' humble buildings have been lost to time. Because of this, you might be surprised to learn of a supposedly man-made structure that you very well may never have heard of. Pamban Island, a small island situated in the peninsula of India. Nearby is Manor Island, which belongs to Sri Lanka. You've likely never heard of these islands, let alone spotted them on a map, but in these islands lies one of the most fascinating pieces of local geography in all of Asia, and possibly the entire world. Between Pamban and Manor Island is a series of shoals made out of limestone. These shoals extend the length of ocean between Pamban Island and Manor Island, and geological evidence strongly suggests that the area was once a land bridge connecting India and Sri Lanka. These shoals have come to be known as Adam's Bridge or Rama's Bridge, but many believe that the strange geological feature is not as natural as we might think and may actually be the result of someone or something putting it there. Stories of Adam's Bridge not being a natural occurrence are not anything new. In ancient Indian tradition, the demon Ramayana, the ruler of now Sri Lanka, captured Rama's wife in an act of revenge. The story goes that in order to cross the great expanse of water to Sri Lanka, a bridge was made through the help of Vanaras, which are intelligent monkey warriors. But recent claims have pointed towards less mystical origins, and some suggest that the strange limestone bridge could be a structure laid by human hands. One scientist in particular, Dr. S. Badrina Rayanan, the former director of the Geological Survey of India, as well as the former coordinator of the Survey Division of the National Institute of Ocean Technology, believes in this theory. Dr. Badrina Rayanan reportedly made an investigation on Rama's Bridge and now believes with certainty that the location is not a natural formation, but one made with human intervention. Alongside his team, Badrina Rayanan surveyed the bridge with the use of boreholes, drilling a total of 10 along its length. The findings of the investigation have led Dr. Badrina Rayanan, amongst others, to believe that a natural formation of the bridge is impossible. This is due to the claim that the team found a consistent layer of materials roughly 6 meters below the surface. This layer was made of sandstone, corals, and boulder formations. Surprised by the find, a group of divers later went to examine the underwater conditions of the bridge. The boulders observed from above were found to be atypical to that which is normally found in ocean waters, and were later found to have originated on either the Indian or Sri Lankan side of the large causeway. This, along with signs that ancient quarrying took place in the area, brought Dr. Badrina Rayanan to the conclusion that the materials were moved intentionally on the sand of the shallow waters. On the discovery, Dr. Badrina Rayanan said, "It is not a natural formation. The top portion of it appears to be a man-made structure. What is known as Adams Bridge is originally a natural grade divide separating the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean to the south, so the geological aspects are different on either side." Dr. Badrina Rayanan added, "We found marine sands on top and below that was a mixed assemblage of corals, calcareous sandstone and boulder-like materials. Surprisingly, below that, up to 4.5 meters, again we found loose sand, and after that, hard formations were there. Below the corals and boulders, we are getting loose sand, which means it is not natural." Of course, scientists are in disagreement with Dr. Badrina Rayanan's findings, and the origins of the bridge more generally. Savrat Kher, a geology expert with a focus in marine geological formations, firmly disagrees with the man-made hypothesis. In his own words, "During the Pleistocene Ice Age period, glacial buildup and melting forced fluctuations in sea level by tens of meters, setting up the conditions for several episodes of coral reef and sand shoal formation. During periods of large sea level drops in the Pleistocene, there would have been a land connection between India and Sri Lanka." What do you think? Could this land bridge simply be a natural phenomenon, or is the evidence for human intervention just too much to ignore? The Firefighter and the Ghost. From the native Indians who settled on the plains to the unstoppable machine that was westward expansion, states such as Indiana have a rich history. Whilst aesthetically stunning, some consider Indiana rightly or wrongly to be a little, forgotten. Although this assumption is not exactly true, something that is undisputable is that the state has had its fair share of terrifying supernatural encounters. Much of the superstition in Indiana is based on folklore, and in the town of Gary, a belief in the paranormal perhaps now runs a little deeper after a spine-chilling event that took place in 2015. An abandoned and dilapidated town, Gary's population is small and crime rates are high. As such, old buildings are prone to setting ablaze, and the city's fire brigade are often busy. But one call-out to battle a small wooden shack that had caught fire was one that the firefighter in question will likely never forget. After taking a few photographs of the blaze for training purposes before posting the pictures on Facebook, the firefighter's family spotted something strange in the window of the fiery abode. Standing in the flames was the horrifying figure of a man dressed in black. The bizarre thing was that the house was known to be long empty, and the firefighters had not heard any signs of distress coming from the building as they put out the fire. As such, residents of Gary came to the only conclusion that they thought fitted the strange event, that the malevolent man in black could only be something from another world, namely a ghost or spirit of some sort. Of course, this cannot be verified, but in a town that has been largely abandoned, even the strangest things are not out of the realms of possibility. Eerie note mother of 3 scrawled after seeing heaven. Tina Hines awoke after passing away for 27 minutes and immediately reached for a notepad to scrawl a shocking message to her loved ones. It's real. The mother of 3 had always been healthy and was preparing for a hike with her husband Brian near her home in Phoenix, Arizona, just moments before suffering a sudden cardiac arrest. Brian saw his wife drop to the ground and watched her in sheer panic as she turned a gruesome purple. He immediately called for emergency personnel and started giving her CPR, he stated. The mother of 3 was momentarily revived twice by Brian before paramedics arrived and took over. In the harrowing ambulance ride and at the emergency room, Tina continued to flutter between losing her life and being alive. She was resuscitated 6 times before stabilizing in the hospital. When she finally returned to consciousness, she was intubated and unable to speak. However, she had a message to tell, and it was not going to wait. As soon as she could, Tina gestured for something to write with so she could scribble a telling message. It's real. When her loved ones read this message, they asked her what was real. The still intubated Tina simply nodded upward. She says that she saw heaven that day. It was so real, the colours were so vibrant, Tina said. She described seeing Jesus standing before black gates on the backdrop of a bright, glowing yellow light. Tina is grateful to be alive today to share her story. About 90% of people who suffer sudden cardiac arrest do not live to tell the story. But her husband's quick reactions and immediate CPR truly made the difference. Survival rates for cardiac arrest increase dramatically when a bystander can quickly administer CPR. This boosts rates of survival from a grim 10% to nearly 45%. Tina is the perfect example of this unpredictability as someone with no history of heart or other serious health problems. Anyone can experience an unexpected glitch in the electrical system that keeps the heart's rhythm, stopping it in its tracks. This brutal fate takes over 356,000 lives a year in the United States. The vast majority of victims have no memory of their technical passing over, but 10 to 20% have a visual or sensory near passing over experience, according to various studies on this. This phenomenon has been the focus of study for many scientists, and research has begun to unveil the explanation of what is happening in the brain when the heart stops. Once the heart stops beating, blood will eventually stop flowing to the brain. But in the immediate aftermath of sudden cardiac arrest, something unique seems to happen, according to a small 2013 University of Michigan study on rats. When researchers induced cardiac arrest in 9 animals, they observed an unexplained burst in brain activity in the moments that would normally precede their passover. This was not just any activity either. It was observed that in a dying brain they saw a widespread, transient surge of highly synchronized brain activity that had features associated with a highly aroused brain. In other words, the final moments of life, the brain becomes hyperactive and behaves as if it is very much alive, with deeply complex thoughts. They suspect that this burst of surprisingly organized, likely conscious brain activity may be the root cause as to how people experience visions just before they depart from life. Furthermore, religious people are more likely to see heaven during these NDEs than non-religious people. For Tina and her family, the evidence is clear. Heaven is a real place. Tina's niece, Maddie Johnson, even got her aunt's message tattooed on her wrist to remind her of this life-changing moment. Canadian police investigate after 14th human foot washes up on coastline. If you are familiar with unsolved mysteries and true crime stories, you might just have heard of the strange phenomenon of human feet washing up on coastlines around Canada's British Columbia. To make the story even stranger, these feet were all wearing running shoes, and some of the bodies have never, ever been found. This instance is actually the 14th such occurrence of feet washing ashore. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police made the discovery of the 14th foot, but the pattern first emerged in 2007 and has yet to be solved. This particular foot was discovered on Gabriola Island in the Strait of Georgia. According to the report by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, a man was walking on the island's beach before noticing a strange object. It looked like a foot inside a hiking boot, which had become stuck inside a log jam, which is where a large number of logs blocks a flow of water. Some theorists have suggested that the feet are the result of accidents at sea, such as shipwrecks or plane crashes. Another explanation is natural disasters, such as tsunamis. Another, more sinister theory is that it could be the work of organized crime groups or even the plot of a serial attacker. Some people have attempted to play pranks on law enforcement by adding phony shoes with fake human bones. "We've had people put dog-foot skeletons in runners and leave them on the beach," said Barb McClintock of the province's coroner's office, and somebody even used some old chicken bones. McClintock suggested that the reason why all of the feet are wearing running shoes is because the light, buoyant nature of the shoes allows the feet to float on the water's surface. It also acts as a layer of protection from decomposition. A previous foot was found in a similar fashion on Vancouver Island. In December 2017, a dog walker found a shoe tangled in seaweed after his dog led him to it. That specific foot was identified as belonging to a 79-year-old man from Washington State, United States. That particular man was listed as missing, but later found washed up. there is still no explanation for his passing of life. Despite the spooky circumstances, the British Columbia Coroner's Office does not believe the feet are related to anything untoward. A number of the feet have been identified, and the coroner states that the individuals who the feet belong to either passed away accidentally or ended their lives themselves. The feet then separate from the body due to decomposition, but their shoes protect the feet until they eventually wash ashore. Still, the story is yet to be solved, as are the identities of multiple owners of the washed-up remains. Scientists suggest that octopus could be aliens. When talk turns to potential extraterrestrial life on Earth, most minds immediately jump to conspiracy theorists and science fiction plots. Few expect to read findings from the scientific community hinting at alien life. Yet that is exactly what has recently come to light, and not in the way that you would think. A scientific paper published in 2018 in the journal Progress in Biophysics and Molecular Biology attempts to explain the origins of life on Earth, and makes some startling hypotheses about the octopus, suggesting that the unusual creature possesses a genome that may have gotten its start from somewhere outside of Earth. When studying the development of species, the octopus presents a unique set of problems, which is what has prompted scientists to look beyond Earth for answers. For most species, distinctive and especially unusual features evolved slowly over millions of years, and this progression can be more or less tracked through the species. However, the striking features of cephalopods, such as their large brains and sophisticated color and shape-changing abilities, arrived relatively suddenly in the evolutionary gene pool. A huge leap such as this is especially unlikely in the more advanced characteristics of a highly developed species. These traits burst onto the scene hundreds of millions of years ago in what is known as the Cambrian explosion, where several modern-day animal groups suddenly began to exist in a form recognizable today. Nobody knows what exactly led to this event, although there are several theories. One possible explanation, specifically mentioned in the paper with regards to cephalopods, revolves around the cryopreserving ability of space and suggests that a piece of space rock or comet hurtling towards Earth could have contained viable specimens of an early form of fertilized squid or octopus eggs, and released its contents as it crashed into our atmosphere, effectively merging extraterrestrial genes with the genomes on Earth. Another hypothesizes that alien viruses crashed to Earth in a similar manner and infected the genomes of a primitive version of the squid and caused the strange evolution into what we know as octopus today. This is not the first time such a theory has been suggested with regards to the evolution of life on Earth, as it is occasionally brought up as a potential explanation for the currently genetically unexplainable. However, such a theory rests entirely upon the assumption that life does exist elsewhere in the cosmos and that these life forms could have been transported across the vastness of space on a comet until they reached Earth. Understandably, hypotheses of this nature are impossible to prove, and will likely remain just a hypothesis for the years to come. But the idea that we could be sharing our planet with creatures evolved from extraterrestrials is fascinating. Sightings of the Zimbabwe merfolk. Unlike the cute animated portrayals of the mythical creature, the mermaids of Zimbabwe have been a recurring problem for those living nearby large waterways in the country, as the humanoid creatures have reportedly been at the center of a variety of random attacks, terrifying vandalism, and delays in construction efforts. Back in 2012, while working on the Gokwe and Osborne dams, the Zimbabwe construction company claimed that nearly every employee had left the construction site in fear for their lives after having been attacked by a strange humanoid river monster known as the Mamba Muntu. It was believed that the Mambu Muntu used the rivers as natural outlets to the ocean, and that they had become terribly angered by the construction efforts. Debates were made on whether or not construction should continue before a full report on the environmental impact was made. However, under pressure of contracts and health standards, construction continued regardless. This forced the local council to hire entirely new workers from out of the country to work on the dam, as the locals refused to continue working on the construction of the project due to their superstitions. Oddly enough, after several weeks, even the foreign workers resigned after claiming to have been attacked by humanoid sea creatures and regarded the entire river as being cursed. In an effort to appease these strange creatures, the council was forced to perform cleansing rituals and make offerings to the creatures before construction began again with no further issues. Although most do not make the connection, Zambia, the closest country to Zimbabwe, built the Kariba Dam in the same waterways within their borders. The project was determined to be a necessity in the region, as the water from the river would not only be able to power all of the electrical requirements for that region, but it would also prove to be a major work program that would allow a number of locals to generate income while working on the projects to be used to help spur the local economy of the region. Unfortunately, many of the religious figures, already suffering under the oppressive hand of the government, felt that the construction of the dam was a violation of the principles of their god, known as Nyaminyami. Nyaminyami was, more specifically, the god of the river Zambezi, and was believed to reside within the river. Religious figures argued that if the dam was built, then Nyaminyami would curse them for messing with the natural ecosystem and bring on a terrible tragedy, urging the locals to defy the government and refuse construction. Despite this sentiment from the religious leaders, many of the locals would still go on to work on the construction of the dam, assisting in the government's tactic to force the native Batonga people to move from their homes and live elsewhere. Almost as if directly predicted by the religious leaders, shortly after the Batonga people were moved, a devastating flood tore through the region, and due to the half-construction of the dam blocking the only direction for water to flow, it led to the entire dam becoming destroyed, killing every single worker that was working on the construction of the project. Oddly enough, however, not a single body has been recovered. Given the fact that the majority of those who died were locals, this led to many of the relatives begging the religious leaders to help lift the curse and allow the dam to be constructed without any future problems. Religious leaders then gave instructions to the people for the only way that the curse would be lifted. They must sacrifice a calf and offer it to the river. For some inexplicable reason, after the ceremony was completed, the bodies of the workers appeared where the calf was placed in the river, allowing the souls to finally be put to rest. New details emerge. The Shroud of Turin's authenticity has been hotly debated since its first appearance in 1390, while also holding firm the position as one of the most well-known relics of the Catholic Church. Finally, in 1988, a team of scientists were given permission to cut small samples of the cloth and sent it out to 3 different laboratories, all of whom independently dated the cloth to 1260 to 1390 AD. However, even these seemingly definitive results were contested, as critics claimed that the test swatches were from relatively more recent areas where the shroud had been patched, contaminated by a fire in the 16th century, or delivered inaccurate results due to the number of people who have handled the cloth over the centuries. There is vast amounts of evidence for both sides. Firstly, the shroud depicts the full body image of a man lying with his hands crossed over himself as though for burial, with markings on his wrists. In the Middle Ages, Jesus Christ was also depicted with crucifixion marks over his palms, although in biblical days they would in fact have driven the stakes through the wrists. Additionally, experts remain mystified as to what could have created such an accurate negative image of a man on the cloth. Tests analysing the cloth have found no evidence of pigments, paints, dyes or stains on the fibre, while also confirming that at some point in its past, the cloth had been in direct contact with the body. However, some experts believe that the Middle Ages date of the shroud points to its use as a burial shroud for a crucifixion victim of the day, centuries after Jesus was crucified. Adding to speculation, in 2018, a bloodstain pattern analysis was performed on the shroud and concluded that the faint blood flow stains came from different angles and were not produced by one body as it was being laid out for burial. Believers in the shroud have also pointed out that the Middle Ages radiocarbon date could have been based on years of the shroud being on public display for believers to touch, kiss and pray over after its reveal in the 14th century. As well as possible carbon monoxide contamination, both instances which could conceivably cause a 1st century artifact to be inaccurately dated as Middle Ages. The Devil's Pool Haunted. The Devil's Pool is one of the most haunted places in all of Australia. It's located just outside of Cairns in the state of Queensland and has been a popular tourist destination for some time now. The Devil's Pool can be found amid an untouched rainforest near large boulders in the town of Babinda. To those who are unaware of the Devil's Pool's dark history, they may find the crystal clear water and streams to be a majestic spot to enjoy and take in the natural beauty. Unfortunately, it has been deemed by the Australian Aborigines as a dark and dangerous place where only bad things happen. The Aboriginal legend explains that a beautiful woman that came from the Yidinji tribe was married to a tribal elder. At some point during their marriage, the woman fell in love with a younger man and they began an affair. They ran off into the woods to start a life together in the hopes that no one would find them. However, the tribal elder was in a powerful position in their tribe and he sent search parties to look for them. Eventually caught and surrounded by the Babinda boulders, the woman threw herself into the water below and took her own life. She couldn't bear a life without her true love and saw no other way out. The Aborigines don't believe she ever left those waters and still remains there, looking for young men she can lure down below the water with her. What was first seen as a harmless legend or tale has gained some traction over time, due to the number of young men that have gone missing and mysteriously passed away at the Devil's Pool. All but one of the missing or deceased have been men. It's also believed that the pool is more aggressive towards men that disrespect the area. One young man kicked a sign that was placed to warn tourists and he slipped, falling into the pool and lost his life. While the number of deaths is still debated, there have been at least 17 young men that have gone mysteriously missing or lost their lives since 1959. But what does that mean? How could they have mysteriously lost their lives? For starters, onlookers have witnessed victims being pulled forcefully and held underwater. There have been other mysterious ways these men have lost their lives. A 24-year-old man named Peter McGann climbed up the boulder and jumped through a small gap into the water below. Police divers were only able to uncover his body after 5 weeks of searching through the murky water of the bottom of the pool. Another young couple was also taken by the Devil's Pool during a flash flood. The woman ended up surviving, but the man was never heard from after that. One of the most recent disappearances was a 37-year-old man, Mr. Hoffman, whose body was found in October 2020, 48 hours after he was last seen. The man was there with another young man who successfully escaped the pool unharmed. A strong current ran through and swept Hoffman away. With so many horrible incidents, the area has been boarded up with railings and large signs have been placed around the Devil's Pool to warn people from swimming or getting too close. So why do people continue to explore the Devil's Pool, despite its large sum of disastrous events? Maybe some find the risk exciting.
So, what do you make of these unsolved mysteries? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comments section below and help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.